علم عراقي، هذا العلم ليلة وعلم كلو الله كريم.
لك باخلة اجوا بغداد الدولة موحدة بغداد عايشة بسلام من كل الناس.
شلام اللوخن نيومتي مخبة. أنا يوين موفينا لازر بمطاين اللوخن من مذيتة شيكاغو. بقليتن لي بتمرخطخلة آها خرزة بليشانة إنجلسنايا قد ماطني شتهم زمتن لناشا ودر من أمتن هلبت علي ميقو أمتن. First and foremost, thank you all for tuning in. Today we'll be providing you with a brief update on the Nineveh Plain Protection Units, their participation in the liberation of Mosul and the Nineveh Plain. So the Nineveh Plain Protection Units, as many of you may have seen on A&B, heard on Facebook, Twitter, or other forms of social media, is currently participating in the liberation of Mosul and the Nineveh Plain. They were selected to fight alongside the anti-ISIL coalition, which included Iraqi forces, Peshmerga forces, US, British, and French forces as well. The anti-ISIL coalition had set a specific date to launch the liberation of Mosul. Prior to that liberation beginning, 350 NPU soldiers were selected to participate within the anti-ISIL coalition. Just days before the liberation, another 250 NPU soldiers were called upon to join the ranks of the NPU and fight on the front lines. Since the beginning of the liberation, the NPU was located on two separate axes, preparing for the Iraqi forces to start the battles. They have participated in the liberation of several villages within the Nineveh Plain. Thus far, the Nineveh Plain Protection Units have secured multiple villages and still remain on some of those lands, including Baghdada, Batnaya, and Karamlish. With that being said, specifically within Baghdada, our NPU soldiers have had to fight off ISIS directly. Although ISIS soldiers were pushed off by majority, a few of them remained in tunnels that were built within the villages. The NPU soldiers have had to deal with a few surprise attacks where a couple of our soldiers have been injured. Since those injuries, a few of them are recovering, while one or two of them have returned to the front lines because they feel the need to join their brothers and continue that battle. Our soldiers are remaining on those lands and willing to protect those lands. Now we need to figure out how it is that we can support them and move forward to help secure those lands for our people. And that is why today we will be interviewing the president of the NPDF, the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund, Dr. Elmer Abbo, as soon as we return from this break.
علم عراقي، هذا العلم ليلة وعلم كلو الله كريم.
لك باخلة اجوا بغداد الدولة موحدة بغداد عايشة بسلام من كل الناس.
Thanks again for tuning in. As I mentioned before the break, today we have with us the president of the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund, NPDF, Dr. Elmer Abbo. Dr. Elmer.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Dr. Elmer, I mean, one of the main things that everyone wants to know, what is the NPDF?
Right, the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund.
Yes, sir.
So we started the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund at the request of the NPU as a legal mechanism to basically fundraise for the Nineveh Plain Protection Units. Clearly, the Nineveh Plain Protection Units are part of the Iraqi security forces, and they are formally authorized. However, just because they're formally authorized and they are receiving some support from the Iraqi military, it's clearly not enough support. And it's certainly not coming quick and fast enough, but that is starting to improve to some extent. That said, the NPU recognized that it had needs for additional resources, and so it was looking for a mechanism to essentially raise money from the diaspora as well as other friends and supporters across the world to help the NPU, accomplish its mission to essentially defend our lands from ISIS and help to hold and protect that land into the future. The issue, became one of obviously, critical nature after ISIS. It was clear that security was essential for our future there, that without meaningful security on the ground, that there was really no way that people would return to their villages, even if they were liberated. And maybe this is the most important, if they were liberated, but liberated by others, that essentially there wouldn't be the trust necessary for Assyrians to feel comfortable moving back into their homes and into their villages. And so it was essential that we saw amongst the Assyrian people security force that came from the people, by the people there. And so when I saw the Nineveh Plain Protection Units, develop and grow, I certainly was under some enthusiasm for seeing it develop. But I recognized that it certainly was resource deprived, and when the NPU came to a group of Assyrians in the diaspora to say they needed some help in raising funds, I was certainly interested, but we wanted to make sure that it was done in a very legal, informal, accountable, transparent way. And so basically, we put a lot of work in to make sure that we put together an organization that was compliant with all U.S. law, to make sure that no one would misunderstand what we were doing. And so what we are doing is raising money for the NPUs, but specifically for three main purposes, which is essentially for supplies and equipment, but none of it weapons or arms, other base infrastructure or other infrastructure that's necessary for our security, and three, the training of individuals, whether they be some of our full-time soldiers or whether they be volunteer reservists. Those were sort of the three purposes, and it's key to emphasize that we're not purchasing weapons or arms, and that was clearly something that we came to in our understanding of recognizing that we had to comply with the U.S. laws, and that in order for us to be doing anything in that domain, we would have to essentially get a license through the State Department. That's not to say that's not an option for the future, but it's not something that we're pursuing at this time.
Thank you. So one of the main things that you pointed out is the legality aspect of things, and everyone wanting to make sure that what they're doing, they're donating directly to this security force, and it's being used for supplies and non-munition items, and that they're doing it legally. So it's something that a lot of people bring up. It's a common concern, but as you're saying, it's a topic that you guys have, I want to say, covered.
Well, we've done a pretty exhaustive review. We first and foremost, we knew that we couldn't do this ourselves. We needed the advice of legal counsel. So we sought out a lawyer with expertise in this area, and we were fortunate enough to be able to retain the advice of a former Inspector General for the Department of Defense. His name is Joseph Schmitz. So he worked directly in government. He's now in private practice as a lawyer. and with expertise, obviously, continuing in the defense industry. And so he was able to, review the laws and then review them with us. Basically, there's sort of three main findings to summarize. In terms of transferring financial money, as long as the government doesn't designate the whole country as a country of special concern, then in general you can transfer money to that country. So Iraq is not one of these countries of special concern. However, the next question is whether or not the money is going for a restricted use, and basically there, and we're talking about if it's involved in essentially the purchase of weapons. If it's involved in the purchase of weapons, then yes, you need to have a special license from the State Department. But since we are transferring money not for the purpose of brokering or purchasing arms, we are just transferring money for the purpose of purchasing, supplies, equipment, paying for the training, base development, these kinds of things. There is no restriction on that. We actually confirmed that opinion in a meeting with the State Department. The State Department has jurisdiction over the licensing of purchasing of arms. And when we met with the State Department, they acknowledged that the transactions that we were planning on involving ourselves in were not under their jurisdiction. And so therefore, we felt that we had done the proper due diligence to be able to move forward. There is a final step, however, and that final step is we still need to produce the appropriate transparency and documentation to support the fact that the end use of the money that we're supplying is going for the purposes that we intend. In other words, if we intend to purchase a vehicle, we need to be able to demonstrate that the money truly went to purchase a vehicle. So as you can imagine, that type of documentation and accountability is essential for us to essentially be operating legally, because there is a point at which the government might come and inspect our books, and we have to be able to document exactly where every dollar went. And so that's the way we're going to move forward and operate. There is one other aspect that we also did as a part of our legal due diligence. We registered the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund as an agent for the foreign entities of the Nineveh Plain Protection Units and the Assyrian Democratic Movement. We registered with the Department of Justice, and so we are formally a representative of those bodies, and that requirement and that registration comes with very formal documentation that we have to maintain every 6 months. We have to present information of our activities, if we've been meeting with any U.S. government officials, and then most importantly, we have to regularly document how much money that we've raised and where that money has gone in terms of expenditures. It's very, very strict documentation. In addition, we have to regularly report on informational materials that we distribute, including posts on Facebook and such. So it's a pretty exhaustive requirement, but we're happy to comply to be able to make sure that we're doing things according to U.S. law.
Wow, I mean, that sounds like a lot of work, but I will, on behalf of myself and our entire nation, thank you for putting the effort to do this legally, because that's a big part of this. Nobody wants to, put their own neck on the line and risk anything, especially if we're just trying to support our security forces to protect those lands. So thank you for doing your other people. Can you speak to any of those? Are you familiar with any of them?
Well, the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund is the only organization that's officially authorized by the Nineveh Plain Protection Units. That official authorization comes in sort of two main facets. One I've already mentioned, which is we're formally registered to represent the Nineveh Plain Protection Units with our own U.S. government. However, before that, there was an agreement between the NPU and the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund, and we had formally incorporated the Nineveh Plain Protection Units into the Defense Fund in terms of its board representation. So Yakub Yaku, the military chair for the Nineveh Plain Protection Units, sits on our board, and as the military chair, we put into our bylaws special rights that he has to be able to essentially veto decisions of our board. He can't unilaterally make decisions for our board, but he can veto decisions. And so that gives him sort of special authority over our decision-making process. And formally, by him representing the NPU in Iraq, but also then obviously being on our board, we're officially tied organizationally to the NPU in that way. And so having him in that way in our bylaws, officially tied, plus the registration, the formal representation to our government saying that the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund officially represents this body that's based in Iraq. There is no other organization that has that relationship with the NPU. It's only the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund as well, because the way that we structured our bylaws, we are the only place where you can donate money that, beyond the small amount of money that might be used for administrative costs, all of the rest of the money is guaranteed to go to the NPU. And why do I say that? Because that's the way our bylaws are structured. There's nothing else that we're spending the money for. We're not doing any other activities beyond raising money for the NPU.
Great, thank you. So the structure is there. We've spoken to attorneys and figured out the legality aspect. The structure is there. The board is put together. Everything's ready to go. I assume that there's been donations flooding in. Where do we stand right now? You mentioned that you guys are transparent with everything. So how much money have we raised? How many people have donated? Where do we stand right now?
Sure. Well, we are transparent. The website, the NinevehPlainDefenseFund.org, the website has a page on it that one can go online and they can see the amount of money that we've raised. They can get a sense of how many people, from what countries, and so all of that is there. In the future, we'll also publicly declare where the money is going in terms of expenditures, but right now we haven't given our first distribution yet. That'll be coming soon, and probably within the next few weeks. In terms of the number of donors so far, we have approximately 130 donors so far. They've contributed in hand about $24,000 and about $44,000 pledged. The reason why there's a distinction there is because we give individuals the opportunity to either donate one time, like all right now, or to spread their contribution over the course of 12 months. And basically, the minimum donation that we're requesting is $150. So over 12 months, that's $1,250 a month. So it's really actually a modest amount of money. And if it's spread out over 12 months, most people could afford $1,250 a month. That's a couple cups of coffee, or maybe 3 cups of coffee at Starbucks. So when we did that intentionally so that we would encourage, just anyone to be able to contribute. However, there are other levels of contribution, and we, encourage everyone to be able to contribute what they feel they are able to. We certainly have seen an uptick in contributions since the Mosul operation started. We are hopeful and optimistic that now that people see the NPU in action, they recognize that we are a legitimate fighting force, that we have earned the respect of the Iraqi army, because clearly the Iraqi army is working in close coordination with us. We are hopeful that this will sort of rally the sentiment and garner more favor towards the NPU, such that people would be more encouraged to contribute more. I should add that the amount of contributions that we've gotten so far although welcome, is certainly not enough. We certainly need, more people to step up. 130 people is great. It's a start. But if we don't get more, then it's going to compromise our ability to continue to establish this kind of security situation that we want to be able to establish for ourselves. I think the important thing to recognize here is that a lot of people might think, well, we're working with the Iraqi military. Why isn't the Iraqi military giving us everything we need? And why aren't they supplying us with more? It's a fair question. It's a fair question. It's not to say that they have not given us stuff. They have given us some stuff. And they are certainly now providing the salaries for 600 men. And so that's certainly a first step. But as we all know, the politics of Iraq is complicated. And so receiving more funding and more equipment is complicated by the larger politics of the country. And yet, we're fighting a war today. We're fighting a war today. And I think everyone recognizes that politics can take months and months to play itself out. And so we really don't have that luxury. We need to be mobilizing ourselves. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for the politics to resolve more favorably towards us, and certainly, say the ADM is working that angle and doing what it can, our job is, as a people in diaspora, our job is to recognize that our people right now are fighting and they need our help. They're asking for our help. If we care about their survival in our homeland, then we should be stepping up. I mean, we're not asking for very much. We're asking for $12.50 a month. If you can do more, great, but $12.50 a month, that's what we're asking. If we had thousands of people, and I'm sure there are thousands of people out there who care about the NPU, who want the NPU to survive, who want the Syrians to survive in their homeland and be able to provide an independent place for us to be able to live and be free, independent in the sense of having a standalone Nineveh Plain province, which is, I think, one of our longer term objectives. There are people that believe that, and if we had 50% of the people that believe that donate, we would have thousands, potentially tens of thousands of people donating. So we need more people to support these dreams, frankly, because these dreams aren't going to be real unless people support them.
Okay, well, I must admit that I'm disappointed. I am disappointed. To hear roughly 130 people have donated, given the amount of Assyrians that we have in all of diaspora, because this is 130 people across the world, right? It's not just the United States.
130 across the world.
Across the world.
About half of our donors are in the United States.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we've got, I can't even give the number, but we've got hundreds of thousands living outside of diaspora.
Well over 1 million.
So there you go. So we're talking, what's the percentage on that? Is that 0.001?
It's small.
It's small. Okay. I won't sugarcoat it. I personally am very disappointed to see that we only have 130 donors. We see that the NPU is fighting. We see that they are on those lands and they're protecting those lands and they're willing to defend those lands so that when our people are prepared to return, they will be there to make sure that what has happened to us will not happen again. So what can we do in diaspora? We've protested, we've rallied, we've signed petitions, we've done it all. Now it's kind of one of those moments where they say, put your money where your mouth is. This is what we wanted, not supporting them. That's one thing that's important for us to individually start building teams. I know that is an option on the Nineveh Plain DefenseFund.org website to build a team. We all have our core group of friends. And yes, $12.50 a month is great, but we also need to understand that there's a bit of urgency right now. The war is happening now. they're fighting there now. They're using trucks and equipment that belongs to the Iraqi army. Unfortunately, at any point, it could be taken away from us. At any point. For us to have salaries for these 600 men is great, but we know that we have, 2,000 plus that have enlisted and are ready to defend those lands. How can we get them onto the land? How can we make sure that they have the equipment that they need to defend those lands? Otherwise, we can't expect any of the people that are internally displaced within Iraq to return to their homes. Why would we let them risk that again? I'm appalled that we only have 130 voters.
Donors. Contributors.
Donors. Yes, thank you.
You raise a lot of good points. Let me follow up on one of them, which is, one of the ways to sort of expand your contribution that you hinted at was the fact that what we're asking for for supporters to do is to really get involved. In other words, it's great if you become a contributor and you contribute $12.50 a month. We love that. We want that to happen. But part of it is spreading the word and explaining what we're trying to do and conveying sort of the truth of the message and the sincerity that this is the only way that we're going to be able to sort of create something for ourselves within Iraq that I think we can all look and say that that's something that we can sustain ourselves over generations. And the way that one can do that, expand their voice rather than just give $12.50 a month, is to become a team leader. And essentially, what we're asking for is for individual supporters to go out and essentially gather their friends and family and join the effort of supporting the NPU, not just as an individual, but as a team. And so you can go onto our website, you can actually call yourself a team name, create a name. If you have a picture or logo that you want to create or use, you can use that and upload that. You identify who your team members are, and then each of the team members goes on and contributes. Just because the team the team is a team doesn't mean that everyone is required to give the same amount. Everyone can still give an individual amount up to the level at which they're able. But this is another way for you to essentially get involved by getting other people to know about the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund, to get them to be a supporter and a believer in the mission for the Nineveh Plain Protection Units. And I think it's really an important mission. So like anyone who, feels that like, wow, I wish I could do more, like I'm only in the position to give $12.50 a month. $12.50 a month's great, but you know what? If you can get 10 other friends together and they're all giving $150, well then you know what? 10 friends together giving $150, you, especially if you were the team leader, you essentially helped raise $1,500. That's a pretty significant thing that might not happen but for the action of an individual team leader to sort of make that happen. So we really encourage it. We want people to spread the word. We want people to really explain to their friends, because I think that's the only way that this is going to really take off, is to have that kind of shared vision of what we can accomplish together.
Thank you, Elmer. We'll be right back after this brief break.
وحدات حماية سهل نينوى في بغداد ترسل لكم أجمل السلام وأجمل التحايا.
يا أخوني أطلق بيضة في دجاني عيرالي ليلة وقتك هيج تطليلي دمت عيني مسيالي بليلة وقتك هيج تطليلي دمت عيني مسيالي هيدا خليطة دم بدون ولا بنيتا اتجاو خاهم انت كرسي الشامير الخمسة اتجاو خاهم انت كرسي الشامير الخمسة سرقن عجبارة لجلو جيلي مخسارة من تطلاشي كد ديارة بغالي بوتا وإيقارة من تطلاشي كد ديارة بغالي بوتا وإيقارة بالتخرنن عندي ناتي ما تزادي أم درباتي عطر إلى إخادوتي يوخي نجوماتي عطر إلى إخادوتي يوخي نجوماتي
Thank you again for tuning in. In the last segment, we mentioned that we have roughly 130 donors as of right now. So one of the biggest things that I'm going to request for those of you that are watching, take the time right now to go to your computer or do it on your phone, type in www.ninevehplaindefensefund.org and click the Support Now button. Whatever it is that you can contribute will make a difference. So please, I'm going to ask of you to visit the website and support the NPU today at ninevehplaindefensefund.org. Now, with those donations, Dr. Elmer, where are these donations going? What is it that we're going to be purchasing?
Right. So when we started this in a very different position because essentially the Nineveh Plain Protection Units was 350 men but a month ago. And now a couple things have happened in the last month. As you mentioned originally, the NPU was given authority from the Iraqi government to call up an additional 250 men. And so now officially we have 600 full-time men. But just over the weekend, the NPU called up 1,000 volunteer reservists, or made a call for volunteer reservists, and the goal is to bring up 1,000 additional men. This is amazing news. I can't tell you how important this is, because when we started this with the Defense Fund and when we looked at the situation that we were facing, we recognized that actually our most important asset, speaking now for the NPU, was to literally have people on the ground that were willing to protect and defend the land. And so The Nineveh Plains, depending on where you draw the lines, is somewhere around 1,200 to 1,500 square miles. The idea of that whole area being defended with just 350 men is sort of unrealistic. So when we were looking at this, the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund recognized that actually one of the things that we could help do was support that full-time force by bringing in additional resources that would help to train additional men to serve as reservists. And so our initial fundraising strategy actually has been to bring in money that would help fund and train additional reservists. And what we referred to this as our trainer reservist program. And we certainly have had people go onto our website, and when they've donated specifically targeting the trainer reservist program. Originally, our goal was to actually train an additional 4,000 men in our trainer reservist program, or 4,800 men, 400 a month. Our initial goal was to train 400 men a month for a year. That's 4,800 additional men to get us to a number of about 5,000 men. Now, we always knew that that was an ambitious goal. We were frank about it. We always acknowledged it. But we also said if we could even reach 25% of that goal, frankly, we'd be happy, because then that would give us at least a footprint of over 1,000, 1,500 men, somewhere in that range. That kind of footprint potentially is enough to be able to spread out across that square footage and be able to protect and defend it. Now, granted, a volunteer reservist is not the same as a full-time soldier. A volunteer reservist would be someone who's there, who can do the initial, or who's there and who can respond in a crisis, but in general, they're going to be living their life and doing things. On the other hand, it's someone who could step up in a time of need and help play a critical role. And right now, certainly as the active offensive against the Islamic State is going on, this is one of those times for sure. And so we're incredibly enthusiastic that the Nineveh Plain Protection Units has actually put out this call to bring in volunteer reservists, and has done so under the authorization of the Iraqi Army. And the Iraqi Army has said that they would be able to provide light arms for these individuals. So there's another example there where the Iraqi Army is giving us support. However, they are reservists, they are volunteers, they're not going to get a full-time salary. That said, even with the program that we were planning on putting in place on our own, we were only intending to pay for training of the reservists. We were not going to be providing the reservist salaries. However, even training costs some money. Those costs are still there, but the biggest cost was to pay a stipend for the reservists to be able to come and participate. Now that the Nineveh Plain Protection Units is sort of doing this on its own, without the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund providing some resources, the Nineveh Plain Protection Units has decided it just needs to do this now because of the urgency of the security situation. They need to get additional men on the ground. They are going ahead and just doing this now, and hopefully volunteers will step up. I'm optimistic and encouraged that they will be. And so the reservists, the idea of having volunteer reservists and the idea of the Nineveh Plain Protection Unit rapidly expanding its footprint is occurring. And that was an initial sort of goal or initial objective that the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund had focused in on. We saw that as an opportunity for us to provide a tremendous amount of value to leverage our influence in the diaspora. How can we most leverage our resources? to have the greatest impact? Well, now if we already have this larger footprint of people on the ground, or we're going to have that very quickly, and it's happening without the Nineveh Plain Defense Fund bringing any additional resources to bear, well then maybe we should be looking for, well, what is the next best thing to use our dollars for? And as we've been in conversation with the leaders of the NPU, it's emerged that one of the essential things that we need to be putting in place is a network of checkpoints. So as you can imagine, if you've spent any time traveling in that area, essentially as you go from village to village, you can't enter into a village without going through a checkpoint. That's an essential method and mechanism of creating security and, frankly, controlling entry and passage through that land. So it's clear that the Nineveh Plain Protection Unit, since we are the local security force within the Nineveh Plain, and we are authorized and operating under the jurisdiction of the Iraqi government, that we need to set up an infrastructure of checkpoints throughout the Nineveh Plain. Currently, the checkpoints that are there are really just, a shack for someone to stand in. There's no, we desperately need to control passage in and out of the villages. We need to know who's going in, who's going out. And the only way that we can do that is through having effective checkpoints. And the checkpoints can't be just a shack. We have to upgrade and make them more robust and secure so that, a car has to, as they approach, has to stop and, be inspected. So it's become clear to us that the best use of our initial distribution of resources to the Nineveh Plain Protection Units is going to be to help the Nineveh Plain Protection Units develop this network of checkpoints. And that is going to be our focus. We're going to be transitioning away from the trainer reservist program, and it's not to say that we don't want to train other individuals in the future, but whereas some of our initial dollars before were going to go to the reservist program, it's clear that that's not the most important need right now. And I say that because there already are men being brought to bear by the NPU without these additional resources. So if they're already doing it, then we need to do something that's not being done or not being done effectively. And it's clear that we need to invest in a network of checkpoints. The longer term goal is to have approximately 18 checkpoints spread throughout the Nineveh Plain. We need to develop them, and we need to build them. For now, our initial focus is to focus in on 4 checkpoints. We need to create 2 checkpoints for Baghdad, and then we need to do a checkpoint for Karam Lesh and Bartella. So that's our initial focus, is to develop those 4 checkpoints. Now, what's involved? Well, to be honest, in some ways, the materials are not that demanding. It's concrete, structures and blocks like that. You can buy concrete relatively cheaply, and these kinds of things. So from a materials point of view, it's a couple $1,000s perhaps. However, the checkpoints themselves are not effective unless you also have vehicles to patrol in between the checkpoints. So ideally, we would have at least one vehicle, SUV type vehicle, one vehicle to essentially go between the checkpoints. You can imagine if there was an emergency at one checkpoint, you'd want people to be able to come to their aid quickly. You can't have people running for miles between checkpoints. You need vehicles. So essentially, we need approximately $24,000 to develop each checkpoint. That's a couple $1,000s for materials, and then it's about $22,000 to buy a used SUV. It'd be a little bit more with new vehicles. We hope that we'll be able to purchase used effectively. If there's not enough supply of used vehicles, we might have to actually look to pay and purchase used or to purchase new vehicles. But Each checkpoint then costs about $24,000. We want a network of 18 checkpoints. If you do the math, 18,000 times 24,000, that's $432,000. That's a reasonable amount of money. It's real, but it's a reasonable amount of money. Already now, based on what's been pledged, we have about 10% of that money raised. That said, that's pledged over the course of the year. We only have 5% in hand. We are hoping that we generate a little bit more money over the next few days, and that we make the first installment to at least have enough money to purchase at least one vehicle and maybe enough materials for 2 checkpoints. And we'll hopefully then make that distribution, like I said, in the next week or 2. Then we're going to continue to raise money, and we're asking for support. As you can imagine, if we don't have this network of checkpoints, then we won't have the effective safety and security that our people are really going to need to feel comfortable to move back into their villages. So I can't emphasize enough how important this is, and what an important contribution it would be for Assyrians in diaspora to know that they are helping us essentially build and maintain a network of checkpoints. That is an incredible gift that we could give our people. It's not an expensive gift, and it's within reach. And so if we can mobilize people around this idea, we think that we could help to grow and put this network of checkpoints in over the next few months. We certainly think we can get 4 checkpoints built, hopefully by the end of the year. If the contributions are there, we're certainly going to keep moving towards it. Clearly, again, building the materials for the checkpoints is not nearly as expensive as the vehicles, but we need the vehicles, and approximately 1 vehicle per checkpoint, for the checkpoint system, for the whole network and the whole infrastructure to make sense and for it to work effectively. And so we're going to just keep spreading the idea that this is what people are going to be contributing to. And we hope that that's an idea that people can see the value of and see the direct results. As we build out these checkpoints, we'll show people the pictures, we'll show people what they're purchasing in terms of the vehicles, and they'll get a sense of where their money is going. And of course, I did hint at this already, but as we start to actually distribute money, and the NPU starts to make the purchases within Iraq, we will document all of that and disclose it and put it all on our website, because I do think it's important that people see where their money is going and that there be transparency. It's their money and they should know where it's going.
Thank you, Elmer. Do you have any other final message for our people at this point?
So the Nineveh Plain Protection Units is providing security for our people to move back into our homeland. And certainly that security is essential. The fact that our people can feel safe to move back in is essential. But the Nineveh Plain Protection Units is playing another important sort of longer term role, and that's frankly creating the space for a province to develop and grow within the Nineveh Plain, and that this province would stand equal to other provinces within Iraq and be independent of the Kurdistan Regional Government, and therefore be able to garner resources from the government of Iraq, have representation for our people according to the population within the area. And I can't emphasize enough how important that that longer-term political reality is for our people and our sort of ability to create a space for ourselves where we can sort of grow and feel comfortable, to have Assyrian villages become towns and then slowly become cities. we need to see the Nineveh Plain become a central homeland for us. And I think that's only going to be effectively accomplished if that space is created in a way that allows our people to express themselves politically and represent their views and their interests politically. And the only way that that is accomplished within the current larger structure within Iraq is as a standalone Nineveh Plain province. And I think it's essential for people to understand that longer-term vision. It's short-term about security, and it's longer-term about the NPU becoming a local security force for an independent Nineveh Plain province that helps our people and then all other people that are living within the Nineveh Plains live freely and express themselves. And I think that that's an essential vision. And if you believe and support in that vision, then you should be contributing and supporting the Nineveh Plain Protection Units. There's no question in my mind.
Thank you, Elmer. I mean, he said it. You've got the short-term goal, you've got the long-term goal. You've got an organization that's been put together in diaspora to fund the NPU legally. They've gone through all of their board, they have the structure to be a part of this. It's all great if it's on paper, but if we don't do anything to actually put it into motion, then it all goes to waste. So we all need to think about it, and I'm going to encourage every single one of you to go again to the website, NinevehPlainDefenseFund.org, and donate. I've hosted numerous events in the Chicagoland area specifically where I've charged anywhere from $20 to $150 per ticket. I've hosted sellout events that have had over 1,000, 1,500 people attending just for a party or just for a dinner. We can spend the money on things like that. We can spend the money on Starbucks. We can spend the money on a night out. We can spend the money on food. For 1 week, don't get your Starbucks coffee. For 1 week, don't eat out. It's that simple. Just one night, sacrifice one Saturday night. Sacrifice one party. Sacrifice something. Because they're putting their lives on the line. It's our duty to support them. Again, I will ask you to visit www.NinevehPlainDefenseFund.org and donate. Support our soldiers today. Thank you.
علم عراقي، هذا العلم ليلة وعلم. كلوا الله كريم.
لك باخلة اجوا باغ بغداد موحدة باغ ده ايش بسلام من كل الناس